everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. Today, because it is June, we are going to be starting our Pride series, and I'm very thankful that you have decided to tune in for this. There are some really interesting questions that have come to me over the last couple of weeks, and I'm very excited to answer them. So the first one, I think, is kind of the easiest, probably the shortest video I'm going to do, and it is, how can I be a good ally to those in the LGBTQIA+ community? And my answer is show up. My answer is become educated. My answer is don't put your own feelings and thoughts and expectations in front of everybody else. But those answers to someone who is not a member of this community are not helpful. I recognize that those who have posed this question to me genuinely want to make sure people in this community know that they love them, that they value them, that they see them, and that they want things to be better for them. Thing is about being an ally, though, being an ally can turn very quickly into the ally's story, right? If you're watching the news these days, and if you're watching social media, it is very, very easy for someone to take the very real plight of a minority group and make it their own as part of the majority. They make it about them and about their sadness, about their fears, about their apologies, and they miss the point, because allyship is not about you. It's not about the people on the outside of that marginalized community. Allyship is someone from the majority making a concentrated, specific, lifelong effort to understand the plight of those in this minority group. Please understand the things that I'm going to say in this video are specific to allyship with the LGBTQIA+ community. Okay? Within that community, there's a whole lot of different things, right? There's lots of different initials. There are lots of different ways that those initials and those labels are taken on by those in the community. And it's really important that someone who is outside of it, someone who wishes to identify as an ally to this community, understands that just because you know one person's story does not mean you know everyone else. The words and the labels that one person uses are not always going to match the words and labels that someone else is comfortable with. And because of that, you need to be listening when you communicate with people. Listen to the words that they use to describe themselves. Listen to their pronouns. Listen to the names that they use for other people in their lives. In conversation with those in this community, you are going to hear them use different words to describe different things. You need to be aware that not every word that is used to describe someone is the same for every person. So one person may be very comfortable with the label of queer. Someone else, that label may make them want to punch walls. All right? You need to be aware of how you use the terms that are used in order to be a true ally. Does that make sense? Now, what I have noticed for a lot of my heterosexual cisgender friends is that when they are talking to those in the community, they get very tied up in saying the right thing, and so they don't want to say anything or they get scared. That makes it about you. That's not about the person you want to be an ally to then. That's about you. That's about your thoughts, your feelings, your fears about doing it wrong. That's on you. If you want to actually be an ally, there's no room for that fear. And so how you work that out is really on you. Maybe you have a close friend that you aren't afraid of looking dumb to, that you can say, hey, is this an okay thing to say? Or what do I do about this? Or how does this work? And if you don't, maybe get yourself one. Or maybe you need to question the reason that you want to be connected to a community with which you have no connection. And I don't say that because it's bad. I say that because you need to be aware of your motives in order to be a true ally and not just cause adjacent. Those are two different things. If you are cause adjacent, then you believe in someone's cause, but not enough to forego your own privileges or rights or understandings of things. Be aware of your emotions. You're going to, as an ally, you're going to be in some spaces that are going to make you super uncomfortable. And if you are uncomfortable, you need to feel that discomfort, because in feeling that discomfort, you are going to address your own biases. All right? We all have bias. We all do. Being aware of your bias is what helps you to put it on hold as much as humanly possible in order to make a conversation about the person you are trying to learn from and not about your own issues. When it comes to being an ally to this community, it is really important that you understand the smaller ways in which our society and probably you sort of put forth that cisgender, heterosexual, heteronormative type of understanding of things, right? There are small ways that we perpetuate this heteronormative, gender binary normative type understanding in the world constantly. One of those ways are how we joke about or label children. Calling someone a crybaby when they cry, telling someone to man up, or calling a girl a tomboy, or calling a guy a mama's boy, in some ways also perpetuates that cycle. Making emotions specific to a gender is weird. It's weird because we all have the same emotions. How we express those are different. But a lot of the times, how we express those are about how we're raised to expect different genders to express them. So being an ally is across the board in everything that you do. You don't get to make jokes to your friends about like man up or, tell a girl she's just one of the guys because she can, you don't get to do that. And also call yourself an ally because that is perpetuating this normal understanding of what each gender is supposed to do. If you're calling yourself an ally to a movement that does not recognize gender as specific to someone's sex assigned at birth, two different things, by the way. If you're assigning normalcy to different actions and emotions, and that normalcy is based on the gender of the action, that does not help anyone's cause. That is one of the most infuriating things for me that I see allies doing. People who consider themselves allies, they're not aware that they're doing it. I'm not currently working in church work anymore, but when I was, a couple of years ago, I stopped doing girls' small groups, guys' small groups, that sort of thing, because there's so much more to an affinity group than specifically someone's assumed sex assigned at birth, because who's checking? So within the ministry world, someone who considers themselves an ally needs to really be aware of how you are working out the microaggressions of expectation of sexuality and gender. As an ally, you have an obligation to the people with which you want to align yourself to be aware of your emotions and the things that come up for you. Typically, when someone is uncomfortable and something pushes against their understanding of normal or what they're used to, it comes out as defensiveness. That's just the typical response to it. I would caution someone who looks to be an ally to be very keyed into what your beginning of defensiveness looks like. So not your like number 5, 6, 7 that actually makes you come out of your mouth and say things to people defensively, but the 1, 2, and 3 that happens before you actually open your mouth, okay? Be real aware of what it is that starts to trigger your defensiveness, and then lean into what that means. What does that mean for who you know yourself to be? What does that mean for your expectations of the world? How much of that is just learned behavior and how much that is genuinely how you feel? When you are in a discussion with someone and you are part of the majority, it is not appropriate for you to co-opt their experience and make it your own. I grew up with this understanding of people in a minority group need people in the majority to stand up and speak out and make a difference. And that's not wrong. But what people in a minority group actually need is allies who will recognize the inequality of access and will work to make that access equal. The paralyzing fear that comes in from being an ally is that you're going to say the wrong thing or upset somebody, or you're going to make things messy or just mess up in general, right? That's the deep-seated fear. And that fear can be a lot of weight for somebody. That thought process is extraordinarily common and extraordinarily unhelpful. It makes the process of the person who is not marginalized the focus. Anytime you make the process about you, member of the majority, that is when it stops being allyship and starts being guilt. It is not required for you to feel guilty. It is required, if you want things to change, that you do the work on yourself and that you remain open to listening. There's a lot of easily searchable, documented information about how the LGBTQIA plus community has been marginalized over the last X number of years. And some people will blame it on the church. Some people will blame it on a certain political party. The purpose of this video is not to make people's guilt worse. The purpose of this video is to recognize that in wanting to be an ally, in claiming that role for yourself, you are obligating yourself to put yourself second. If you're not willing to do that, and if you're not able to do that, then that's where you are. Don't pretend like you're somewhere else. Don't put yourself out there, companies, for a month and change your logo to a rainbow to increase revenue, and then spend the next 11 months giving money to entities which would actively remove rights from the LGBTQIA plus community. Don't do that. Allies work regularly to not just restore the rights to those who have been marginalized, but to work towards a future cooperatively that stops happening. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. And sometimes it means opening your ears more than your mouth. So this ended up being less of a therapist video and more of a, hey, let me tell you what's actually happening video. But sometimes that's what therapy is too. Thank you so much for tuning in. That's it for this week, and I will see you later.